In today's video, I hope to share with you an important insight into the Bracha of Shemoneh Esrei while exploring that emotion that we've been talking about, the emotion of a grandfather. At the conclusion of this video, I will share with you a practical exercise that you can do every time you daven or whenever you feel inclined to do so during davening, and it hopefully will be able to make a very strong impression on your tefillos. I personally have found it to be a game changer. It will also explain why it is that we have to daven 3 times a day, every day. Additionally, the first couple seconds of this video, the wind is able to be heard on the recording, and I apologize for that, but that sound will go away, and the rest of it will be able to be heard clearly. Please enjoy the following video. Let us continue from where we left off. The emotion of a grandfather. That feeling of love, unconditional love, that doesn't really care whether the child is deserving or not deserving, has done the right thing or hasn't done the wrong thing, but just wants to be able to give and to be able to nurture the grandchild. Where do we find that in davening? The answer, I believe, we can find that in the first bracha of Shemoneh Esrei. It is essentially the most important bracha of Shemoneh Esrei, that according to halacha, you're even supposed to repeat Shemoneh Esrei if you don't have the right kavanos, the kavanos of the words. So what is that bracha about? Let's go look at a Gemara in Psachim that is brought in Rashi, in Chumash, in Parashas Lech Lecha, and I believe we can be able to understand the core meaning of the bracha. There are still many other elements that I will leave to you to continue to explore in that bracha as you continue your davening. But the pasuk says in the beginning of Parashas Lech Lecha, Hashem promises Avrohom, Lech Lecha, leave your land, and Hashem will give him 4 brachas. Ve'escha l'goy godol, I will make you into a great nation. Ve'avarechacha, and I will bless you. Ve'gad lo shemecha, and I will make your name great. Ve'yeh bracha, and you will be blessed. What are those 4 brachas? So Rashi brings the Gemara in Pesachim. It says, Ve'escha l'goy godol, zeh shoymrim elokei Avrohom, that your children, your descendants will continue to say Elokei Avrohom when they daven to Hashem, or to recognize Hashem. V'avarechacha, zeh shoymrim elokei Yitzchok, ve'gad lo shemecha, zeh shoymrim elokei Yaakov. And then the Gemara says, Yochol yochais mechom bechem. You might think that you're chaismin bekulan, you're chaismin the bracha with all of the avos, as in to say the words Magen avos. Comes the pasuk, comes the bracha ve'yeh bracha, and that you will say, or your children will say, Magen Avrohom. What is the meaning of that bracha? Do we think that Avram Avinu was so concerned that people, his future descendants, will say his name in davening? And if that is true, why is it so important, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov? So of course it has a deeper meaning. Let's think about it. Avram Avinu's mission in life was that people should know that there is one God, that they should recognize Hashem. The bracha was that his mission in life will be fulfilled and will continue on into future generations. And his children and his grandchildren and great-grandchildren will say, Elokei Avram, will recognize the God that Avram worked so hard to bring into the world, to bring his presence into the world. Not only that, but there's an additional bracha, that you will have a child, Yitzchak, and he will forge his own relationship with Hashem, and he will bring Hashem's presence into the world in his own way. And people will recognize that, and they'll say, Elokei Yitzchak, that there's also the midah of din, and then there will be a grandchild, and he will make his own way, and that will be the midah of tiferes, or emes, and they will say, Elokei Yaakov. But then there's a 4th bracha. People that will learn to relate to Hashem through different ways, through gvura perhaps, through din, times when things are hard, times when things are noira, things are going to be with the midah of tiferes or emes. They will still always be felt the midah, the feeling of avo. And that's why we conclude, not Magen Avos, that there's this general awareness, but specifically Magen Avrohom, the feeling of avo, that Hashem has a love for his children and his grandchildren, for his people. We conclude that bracha And Hashem was telling Avrohom Avinu that your children will always relate to Hashem and know through Hashem through the midah of Ava, the midah of Chesed. Let's look at that concluding part of the bracha. It says, Zoiche Chasdei Avos, that Hashem will remember the Chesed of the Avos, and He will bring the Gula to His Livnei V'neim, to the grandchildren of the Avos. Why? Laman Shemoy Bi'ava. It'll be done because, in the sake of Hashem's name, Laman Shemoy Bi'ava, with love. What are those three statements? It'll be Livnei V'neim, to the grandchildren, Laman Shemoy, for the sake of Hashem's name, Bi'ava, with love. So Laman Shemoy means, don't think that the children and the grandchildren, the future generations, will need to be deserving of that chesed, or be deserving of that gula, because Hashem will do it not for Laman Shemom, not because of their sakes, not because of the sakes of the Avos, but Laman Shemoy, because Hashem is the shame of chesed, the shame havaya. Laman Shemoy, because Hashem is chesed. That's the reason why Hashem is going to bring the gula, not because we deserve it, and not because we've earned it, not because we have the schus avos, but Laman Shemoy, because Hashem's own name requires or brings out that gift of bringing the gula. And it will be ba'ava, also an unconditional love, not limited by the needs or the earnings of the children or the grandchildren. And where do we find that? How can we capsulize that emotion? It says He's going to bring livnei v'neihem. He's going to bring it to the grandchildren, because that's the love of a grandfather. It's Laman Shemoy only because the grandfather loves the grandchildren, not because they're deserving, and it's with ba'ava, an unconditional love. Now we can begin to understand why this bracha is so important. Why this bracha, if it's not said with kavanah, needs to be repeated. The whole Shemoneh Esrei changes when we first recognize that Hashem loves us. And Hashem will bring the gula for us because He loves us and not because we deserve it and because we earn it. Now when we continue into Shemoneh Esrei and we ask for our needs, and sometimes we feel that we're lacking, and sometimes we feel we're afflicted, sometimes we feel we are pained and things are terrible, we recognize that everything Hashem is doing is because He loves us. Whether we appreciate it, whether we can feel that love at that moment, or whether we can understand why we're getting it, all of those things may be true that we don't. But we start off recognizing that Hashem loves us. And He is bringing everything to us, Laman Shemoy Bi'ah, because He has that love, that emotion of a grandfather. And then when we ask for things, we can ask for it differently than if we feel Hashem is out to get us, or if Hashem is being punitive. We start off recognizing that those emotions don't apply to Hashem. Hashem is always going to be with Ava, Laman Shemoy, because that is the midah of Hashem Himself, and then we can continue on to Shemoneh Esrei. Now that we've identified that feeling of a love for a grandfather in the bracha of Laman Shemoy Bi'avo, concluding with the words Magen Avrohom, let me also share with you why it is I think that we are supposed to bow down at that bracha. Because it is important that we acquiesce, we submit ourselves, we surrender ourselves to Hashem, and we let go of all of those negative feelings that we might be having. So perhaps there's been a feeling that you think Hashem has been doing with Midas Hadin. If you identify that, and then when you conclude the bracha and you say Magen Avrohom and you bow down Baruch Atah Hashem, let it go. Let those feelings go. It's not really forgiving, but sometimes that's a good way to identify it. Forgive Hashem, let it go. Release the negativity that you have and be at peace. It's an amazing experience when you get good at it. And it also explains why we have to do this every day, 3 times a day, because it's like therapy or it's like exercise. You have to practice doing that, and the more we do that, the more it'll actually affect our feelings, affect our relationship with Hashem, and improve our tefillos. That's all good. Thank you very much, and I look forward to talking to you again in a future video.